Good day and welcome to Flight Dreams. Today is the first day of Operation Jules Verne around the world in 80 flights, and we'll be flying this tour in the Spitfire. As you can see here, it's a beautiful plane taking off from London City Airport, which is on the east side of London, flying down to Paris, to the south side of Paris to Orly. You can see here, there's the direct route we're going to be taking, the city airport. All of this yellow is London and surrounding areas. This is Heathrow. That's Gatwick, for those who know the area. This is where Orly is. The yellow is Paris, and this is Charles de Gaulle Airport. Right now, we're sitting right here on the east end of the tarmac in the apron, getting ready to boot up and go. It looks like a beautiful day, no clouds. And you can see here, I do have the point of interest feature turned on. I like to do that when we're flying VFR, which we will be today, especially when I'm flying in areas that I don't know. Sometimes I just take a side trip and have a look at that point of interest and then move on. So let's get in the plane. And there we are in our Spitfire. Close the door. Get ready to go. I think the first thing we'll do is pull up the weather and let's listen to the weather.
London City Airport, 1850 Zulu. Flight rules VFR. Wind 200 degrees 6 knots. Visibility 6 or more miles. No clouds detected. Temperature 14. Dew point 6. QNH 1028.
Excellent. So the QNH, or the altimeter, was set 1028. There we go. And winds are from the west, so we'll be taking off to the west. I'll be using the in-game ATC for this flight. So let's pull up the checklist and get going. It is dawn, just after 7 in the morning. So parking brake set. Battery is turned on by moving the throttle forward. Pop control right here, forward. Fuel tanks, we've got to hide that joystick for a second. They're turned on. Mixture is off. Throttle open, about a ½ inch pump. There we go. We're going to pump this about 10 times. There we go. Primer as required, not today. Starters open. There we go. Mixture all the way forward. Magnetos on. And now we can start the plane. Prop. There we go. We'll pull the throttle all the way back. Just let her idle here. We need to check over here to see what our heading is. And our heading is 151 degrees for 190 miles. You can see we'll fly over the countryside, England, over the Channel, over France, down to Paris. It'll be interesting to see what sights we can see on our route into Paris. Okay, one thing we have to do is set our trim at one notch down. There we go. That will help with our takeoff. And AI, gonna have somebody else, or have me do the AI with the air traffic controllers. But I'm gonna have it automated because there's a lot to do in this plane when you're flying it. There is no autopilot. So it just makes it easier for me to go that route. Okay, turn the radio on and contact ground and request taxi to the south.
City ground, Spitfire 227 with Sierra, request taxi for takeoff south departure.
Spitfire 227 taxi to and hold short of runway 27 using taxiway Echo Alpha Kilo Mike. Contact tower on 129.455 when ready.
Taxi to and hold short runway 27 via taxiway Echo Alpha Kilo Mike Spitfire 227.
Super. Break off. And here we go. You'll notice it's come up. The game has come up with how to get to the runway. I often will use that when we're on in-game ATC. The reason being, if you don't get exactly where you want you to go to the runway, to the holding point, your ATC is totally wiped out. You can be sitting there for a long time without getting permission to take off. So using a ribbon just helps you solve that problem. When I'm on VATSIM, I don't use that. Beautiful sunrise this morning. You'll also notice a typical S-curve that we're doing to taxi this plane. And we do the S-turns. Gives a beautiful curve so that we can see. As you can see, it's a tail dragger. And with all tail draggers, you cannot see over the nose when we're on the ground. So we'll just lean a little bit to the right here and pull the throttle back just a bit. And to the left, this allows us to see where we're going. There's the windsock right in front of us. So have a bit of a wind from the left as we take off. Not much. I believe the maximum that the crosswind that a Spitfire can take is about 20 miles an hour, 17 knots, give or take. In today's planes, the modern planes, whether you're flying a Cessna or commercial, or one of these private jets that are off to my right, you deal in knots, but this Spitfire is an old plane. We're dealing in miles per hour. So when we do take off, I am going to go towards London. And then I will turn to the north, swing back around, go over the airport, and then pick up 151 degrees. We're going to go onto the runway. There's nobody here. We would get a warning if there was somebody coming, but always double check. And there is this airport, little loop at the end of the runway that we will take and then line up and get permission to go. Real life, we would have got permission to actually enter the runway before heading down here, but the game doesn't do that. It only asks us once we do the loop down here. Head out the window there. The canopy, we will be closing the canopy, but we'll do that after we have taken off. And we actually open the canopy on our landing also. It's a safety issue. the airport, head west. Probably will see a number of points of interest tags show up. Tons of them in London, lots of them around the UK, tons in London. We're not going to take advantage of looking at them all now. That could be a whole flight sightseeing tour, and maybe I will do that at some point, but not today. You see the green taxi lights. Still on, it's early morning. It's now about 14 minutes after 7 in London. This is the clock down here. Now when I come to a stop down here, blue ribbon will switch.
City Tower Spitfire 227 at runway 27 ready for takeoff departure to the south.
Spitfire 227 cleared for takeoff runway 27 departure to the south approved.
Just
cleared for takeoff runway 27 Spitfire 227.
Just have a little look. Make sure nobody's coming. Safety first when flying. Now we want, there's downtown London. See if we can get lined up on the runway. So we're heading straight down as best we can. Use the paint on either side. Looks like we're going, so throttle forward slowly.
Spitfire 227, continue for south departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace.
Close the roof.
City Tower Spitfire 227, continue for south departure.
So there's the O2. Scenery in Flight Sim now is just incredible. Just as we make our turn here, we can get rid of the airport map, and you can see the map that the turn we're going to make. Let's go up to about 3,500 feet. I think that's where we want to go. We'll climb a little bit too fast. Our nose down, climb about 180 miles per hour, which is around 1,000 feet. Now there are no navigation aids or way to navigate in the Spitfire. What we would have today in NDB or VOR. So it was totally line of sight before Dead Reckoning. But today what a pilot would do is having kneeboard. Here's the airport right here. They would have their tablet, their iPad, or whatever they prefer to use. I'm going to turn on the heading here to 151. Give or take, it's not a perfect science in this plane at all. So they would have an iPad, sometimes it would be strapped to their leg, sometimes it would be mounted to the plane. But that's what this is. These are the maps by Jeppesen. And that way they can have some modern technology, which is fantastic. So we know we have to follow 191, or sorry, 151. So come over here a little bit more. There's downtown London, lots of scratches on the canopy. Now are we going to follow that perfectly? That being the line, no. We won't be following that perfectly. But close enough. Give us a
Spitfire 227, you are leaving my airspace. Frequency change approved.
City Tower Spitfire 227 frequency change. Heathrow approach Spitfire 227 is type Supermarine. Spitfire 4 miles southeast of London City. Request flight following. Spitfire 227 Heathrow approach. Squawk 6027. Squawk 6027 Spitfire 227.
push this button that gives us a moving
London
map.
City 3,100 feet. Altimeter tree 0.36.
And
Copy
we
Spitfire 227.
try to fly around 3,500 feet today, so we're close to it. This is the altimeter here. We're at 34. Nose down. Oh, the problem. Sorry, they throttle back to 0 boost. RPM to 2,000. And then we're going to fly around here, so I'll have to trim it out. And before we took off, we put 1 notch down. I have to just keep playing with it until we get the plane able to fly close enough to 0 climb, 0 descent by itself around 3,000 feet. So it's a plane that requires lots of attention. Throws a little. I'm trying to fly it a little faster, around 200 knots today. So I put the RPM up. I'll put the boost up just a little bit. Keep on drifting to the left. And that's the wind that's pushing us. When we took off, it was from the southwest. It still is at the moment. It will swing around. Have a look over here. Beautiful, the Thames. Just fantastic. And you can see I'm taking my eyes off of inside the cockpit, and we climb to 3,900 feet, so something we don't want to do. It's a manual adjustment all the time to fly this plane, which is fun. And they aren't as forgiving, they being the old warbirds, aren't as forgiving as the new planes are. The Cessnas and so forth, the planes of today, they trim out far easier than planes of World War II. So the pilots back then, I can imagine, would come back from from a sortie just absolutely exhausted. Not only would you have having to fly this manually, the only way you can know where you are is looking at landmarks. You have a flight plan knowing that you're going to fly a certain distance on a certain heading at a certain speed, and that will get you there at a certain time. But after that, also, they're in combat, both sides, the Axis and the Allies. Those pilots, they were in combat. They never knew when you were going to actually get into combat, get into dogfighting. So that must have just added to their being tired. There we are, just over 200. See, I trim it up a bit. Keep on. Let's see, climb and descent meter. You can see we're descending a bit. Keep on pushing up. Trim elevator. So that I could actually let go of the stick. Right now I'm having to pull the stick back just a little, and the goal is not to do that. But you don't want to over trim either, because then you'll always be going up. So it's a fine balancing act. I've had several comments from people about how realistic Microsoft Flight Simulator is now, realistic in how it looks, and flying where I know, around my home, other areas where I've been in the world, which aren't many, but recognizable from photographs and so forth. This is real, so you can imagine that this is exactly what the countryside of Southeast England does look like. Let's go over to the map here. I'm way off, drifted a lot, so let's go back to the right. The wind is really pushing, and try to fly. Now we've got 190.
Spitfire 227, contact Gatwick approach on 129.025. 129.025, Spitfire 227. Gatwick approach Spitfire 227, 3,600 feet. Spitfire 227 Gatwick approach, continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.37.
So I'm going to fly further to the right than the 150 degrees. Right now you can see we're about 160.
Spitfire 227 contact approach on 120.705.
About 162. Now it gets back on
120.705, Spitfire 227.
150 line. That
Approach Spitfire 227, 3,600 feet.
Spitfire 227 approach, continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.37.
And that'll take us back to the 150 degree mark. It will take us down to Orly. So you can see how easy it is. The wind has pushed us off to the right. If you don't account for that wind hitting your plane, you will not be flying where you want to go. You can see on the map here, we're heading back down towards that line. There's no rush to do it, no panic. Now go outside the plane for a minute and listen. Now, parameter. As I do the right behind the plane, see it's not. And that's because the plane is being pushed by the wind. And again, outside the cockpit, we got up to 4,000 feet. If I was in a modern plane, single or twin engine, had it trimmed out, that's where we would have stayed around 3,500 feet mark, and I wouldn't have had to worry about it. This one, constant adjustments, which is great. And you can can see here's the channel. There's the shoreline right there. The blue is the English Channel. Great day for sightseeing. Though sometimes it's nice to have some clouds around. Aesthetically, it looks fantastic. Still great. I don't know if it's coming through on your video in your speakers. When I look to the right, I hear the engine more in my left ear. Come back, I hear it in both. Look to the left, the engine is more in my right ear. Come back, and I hear it in both. Just beautiful modeling. Now this is an exact replica of everything that needs to be done flying the Spitfire. All prop planes, you do a run-up just before you're ready to take off. This plane doesn't have that. Matter of fact, it can be a bit of a pain to do. So I haven't done it. I haven't tried to model it on my own. But it's pretty good. When we climb above 10,000 feet, we do have to put our oxygen masks on. That is modeled. There's some switches that you throw. And above 12,000 feet, if we don't throw a switch to pressurize the fuel, we don't get fuel into the engine, and we will stall. There is a light that will come on to say, hey, you didn't do that. Flip the switch, and that light will be extinguished. If it doesn't extinguish, then you've got to drop down below 12,000 feet, get that fuel tank pressurized, and then you can climb back up. The ceiling in the Spitfire is around 40,000 feet. Most of our trip will be done well below that so that we can see some of this beautiful scenery. But there will be times crossing the ocean, especially on our way home, almost on the way back to the UK, in between Greenland and Iceland, and in Iceland and the Faroe Islands, where we probably will climb. How high up, I don't know, probably into the low 30,000s. But we'll see. And of course, the whole trip, depending on when we go, is weather dependent. If there's not enough ceiling, the clouds aren't high enough, I won't be flying. But with 80 legs, this will take a while to finish anyway. There might be days when I do get to do this. I do work full time, so this is just a hobby. There might be times when I'll be able to do 2 legs at one time. So the White Cliffs of Dover are way up there, off on the horizon. Beautifully modeled in this game also. One day we will do a sortie where we do a patrol, as it would have been probably from Duxford, which is an Air Force base northeast of London, down to the coast, fly by Dover, and then up and fly the channel, and then back. But that's another time. Just beautiful today. What a great day to start our first flight of 80. See, I did check over here. We're still to the left of the line, the ley line. Yes, you can tell I do some sailing, or did some sailing, if you know that term. We are to the left of the ley line as we're heading south. So I'll keep on trying to head maybe even a little bit further because we're still getting pushed by the wind. The wind is probably coming around maybe a little more to our right, or has strengthened, but in any event, we're getting pushed. So they would have used points of land such as the peninsula there, and so forth, to see where they are, when they should have been there. Not quite as important if this bit was going to be flying patrol, or a few of them out of the same airbase, but when they provided cover for the likes of the B-17 bombers, it was very important they flew from a different airbase so they would meet before they would head out over onto the continent. So getting that timing right was absolutely crucial. Because there's no way you wanted your bombers to head over to the mainland without fighter escort. And that was the same in the Battle of Britain. The Germans did not want their bombers heading across the Channel and over the UK without fighter protection. Looks like I can just make out right here. Line looks a little bumpy. It's probably the Channel. Sorry, the Channel. It's probably France. If we were higher up, we would know, but we're trying to stick around 3,500 feet. Beautiful glare off that beautiful elliptical wing that the Spitfire was known for. By the way, the livery that we are flying the Spitfire in is the one that George Burling used during the war. George was an RCAF, Royal Canadian Air Force pilot, and an ace. So it is that livery that we will be using for the full 80 flights. What we won't have to worry about today is a descent calculation. We're only going to be at 3,500 feet. When we are talking to Orly Tower, getting the approach to the runway that we're going to be at, then where we would be just about bang on where we should be for altitude. If we were flying up at 32,000 feet, we'd have to time it to descend from 32,000 feet down to about 3,500, 5,000 feet. Insufficient time, first of all, to make it to the runway, but also you don't want to be in a dive. The G-force you would be pulling would be tremendous if you went too quickly. No need for that. This is not the war. We're not trying to evade a Stuttgart or a Messerschmitt. So there will be times where we will need to do that descent calculation.
Spitfire 227, contact London Center on 118.475.
118.475 for Spitfire 227. London Center, Spitfire 227, 3,500 feet.
Spitfire 227, London Center, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.42.
And I lost my train of thought there listening to the tower, or center rather. Just about back on that line. So what happens if we flying the 151. We fly here. Right now it's about 169. See if that keeps us on track. Should see if I can play some background music from the 40s. When I'm flying these flights. The Glenn Miller Band happens to be my favorite from the 40s. Although lots of great songs outside of the Glenn Miller Band, such as Sing 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 by Benny Goodman, etc. Lots of great singers back then. Maybe we'll see if we can get some music. By the way, none of this is edited. What you see is real time, mistakes and all. That's part of flying. Nothing is perfect. I'm still trimming the plane out, by the way. Trying to get it so that I don't have to be pulling back at all. Even just a slight pressure on the stick. When you have to do that, you get tired. As I mentioned earlier. So it looks like flying about the 168, 69 degrees with the wind is keeping me right where we want to go. There are times where you do have waypoints, you don't have a direct heading right to your destination. And you have to use, I use the sky vector, which is this chart here, right there. I use that to help plan my flight. And you'll see, when we get in here, Paris. This is London Center on this side of that line. This is Paris Center on this side. So when we do contact Paris, we're asked to, we'll be right in about there.
For Spitfire 227.
Oh, there we are.
Paris Center, Spitfire 227, 3,700 feet.
Spitfire 227 Paris Center, continue as planned. Decimal 42.
And that was almost as if it was planned. But it wasn't, so we're halfway across the channel. Only because right here it is the difference between the two centers cuts halfway between the channel. We'll check the winds. Paris in a while. Too soon to do that. The last, before we took off, the winds were 090, so out of the east. Let's just see if we have that here. We should. 090. We might get coming in on runway 6 or runway 7. But we will find that out later on. There's certainly no rush. One thing I didn't do, I probably should have done, was set a timer. I normally would do that. So I know how long we've flown, so that I would know how much longer we have to go. It's pretty easy to do. 190 nautical miles divided by 200 miles per hour, you'd have to change 1. The same, and weather denomination, and that will give you how much time to go. You can see we're on 150 again and drifting to the right, so the wind is still continuing to come from the right, from the southwest to west. It's interesting. When we get to Paris, the wind will have shifted. Now, yes, it's a ground wind in Paris of 90 degrees, whereas we are at 3,500 feet, but they'll probably be pretty close. And yes, just so you haven't seen any of my other flights, we are using default weather in Flight Sim, but it is the actual weather that's going on there. So right now, over the channel, sorry, yes, this is the coastline. See, right there, the coastline of France. So right now, over the channel, we have no clouds. It's a beautiful day. If there were some clouds, they'd be showing up the correct amount of cloud cover and the type of cloud. If it was raining, we'd have it. Snowing, thunder and lightning, we'd have it. Also, you've been seeing the sun climb, and all of that is modeled here. Because the Spitfire doesn't fly at night, and if I flew at night, all you can see is black out the window anyway, and that kind of defeats the purpose of flying in a Spitfire and doing these VFR flights. Sometimes I force the time of day in the game rather than using the actual time that it is, and that depends on when I can actually get around to flying this flight versus the real time. Right now I'm flying late afternoon, and it would have been dusk and dark once we got up in here, and that would have been not much fun to see anything. So I forced the time to be 7 in the morning when we started out. Right now you can see it's, I guess that's 8, about 53. It's the second hand, give or take. Clock's a little difficult to read, but doable. Now what we can do, well, we're not there doing it yet, but what we will do is go to the nearest airport. When we get closer, we will find Orly and request a full stop landing. They'll give us, they being the tower, will let us know which runway to land on. Now they might give us a star, also, which is standard terminal arrival. We won't be doing that. If they give us that, they probably won't though, because we haven't filed a flight plan, an IFR flight plan. They will give us
Spitfire 227, contact Rowan approach on 118.575.
118.575 for Spitfire 227. Rowan approach Spitfire 227, 3,500 feet.
Spitfire 227, Rowan approach, continue as planned. Altimeter tree, 0.42.
So they'll just give us runway 6, use downwind, left downwind, right downwind, whatever. That kind of instruction, and we'll follow that. How are we on the line? Still to the right. Not the end of the world though. But you can see the corrections that need to be made, how they did it in World War II. Just amazing. To me, I guess, that's the type of navigation they had, so they were used to it. They were used to putting these kind of calculations in. You have to remember, too, they didn't have the wind calculations we have today. The wind is modeled in this game, so different. As we move along here, the wind will change in direction, in velocity. They know that from where they're actually grabbing the weather from the real world weather. It's just phenomenal. So, when wasn't the reporting in World War II in the 39 up to mid-40s on weather like that? So, how they actually said you need to fly this heading, corrected for these kind of winds for this time, don't know. Must use averages, not sure, but I'm impressed. There's a bay and a river, so if we go over here, here's the bay, and there's that river. So if you knew exactly where you're going in Flight Sim, and had the time to actually program it totally, you can use landmarks to fly. When I'm flying around my home base, I can use the highways because I know what they, if they look like what they are. The highways actually will show up with numbers. You can see the white lines on the map here. Those are all roads, major roads. Gray lines are less than major, what they would call them, I don't know. Depending on where you are in the world, they are actually labeled with numbers. So if I had have pointed it out in the UK, there would have been the M1, M25, etc. US and Canada, they go by numbers. The 400 series in Canada, the Interstate series in the US, and they're listed so you can actually follow along that way. That might be a very interesting tour one day, is just to pick a highway, a major interstate, and follow it coast to coast or north-south. Maybe do that across Canada or Canada and the US. That'd be an interesting tour. See here, just off the right wing there, the starboard wing, that it is actually a cliff getting into France. And right here, turbines. And yes, turbines are actually modeled, obviously, in the game. You can see them turning. They are placed where they should be. At night, they actually show up with a red light at the top, as they do in real life. And if you know where the airports are, they actually, you do see them. You see them as whether they're grass, pavement, etc. What they are. Doesn't look like there's any around there where I am, but they do show up when you're in the modern planes. The GPS that they have is modeled off the Garmin 1000, which is what I use in the Cessna 172 that I fly. And I also believe it's in the Beechcraft Baron 58 that I fly. But it will show where all the airports are. Actually has them identified on the moving map. Same thing when I'm in the 320, the Airbus 320, which is a small jet. I say small jet, it's a commercial jet. Small compared to the Boeing 747. It's just the amount of detail you can get is just incredible. There's a river off about 11 o'clock. And you can see it right here. That's this river right there. To our left, there's the bigger river that we were seeing when we pointed out the bay. A few clouds starting to appear here. You can see them there. Don't know if that will be building towards Paris. Paris was cloud-free the last I looked. Just have a listen.
Paris Orly, 1930 Zulu, 110 degrees 5 knots. Cav OK, temperature 17, dew point 2, UNH 1030.
Okay, so it looks like a great day. When they say Cav OK, that's aviation speak, short form for ceiling and visibility. Okay, which means no clouds. The wind is now 100 degrees instead of 90. So we make it runway 6. Often in the game you're assigned a runway, but then you can choose a different runway should you want to. More turbines down to our right and then down to our left here. I do find though the game sometimes doesn't select the runways that I would. They put you in the tailwind, which is okay, you should land into the wind. Small tailwind doesn't make much difference, but sometimes I get the tailwind is just a little bit too much for where they want you to take off and land. But because you're in the game and you're seeing other aircraft, you have to do what they say. When you're on VATSIM, it's more, I'll say, real world weather, or operations rather, not weather. They both have real world weather, and it's the same. So it's the operations. So it's just something we have to be aware of. Lots of turbines up here, down around 1 o'clock. And back here to our left, about 5 o'clock. They were the ones that were off at 11. Now it's interesting too, you can see the landscape and all the patches for the farming and the agriculture. If we do see a golf course, it will show up. And clearly you can tell a golf course from the air. They do have, tree-lined holes, etc., etc. All the bunkers and that. That's it. The way they get this to look so real is they're using satellite photos and Bing maps, which that's what gives it the authenticity that it does. One of the first things that people commented when Flight Sim came out, this version of Flight Sim's been out, oh boy, almost, I think it's 35, 40 years, back in that, is your first flight will probably be to find your house. And sure enough, my first flight was to find my house.
Spitfire 227, contact the Gaulle approach on 119.85.
Going to 119.85 Spitfire 227.
And my house was there.
De Gaulle approach Spitfire 227, 3,500 feet.
Spitfire 227 to Gaulle approach, continue as planned. Altimeter 30.39er.
So all the buildings around me, they're apartment buildings, some office buildings that are nearby, this big shopping mall, all modeled, all there. All the roads, not just the major highways that are in my area, but my street, all the little streets around. It's there, and that's taken from big maps. Absolutely phenomenal. But that was the thing. I think most pilots found their house, and then after that they started going for other landmarks or cities. Sometimes you just want to see what a city looks like, or you want to check out a landmark. Now I've flown a little bit too far to the right, but that's okay, so the wind must be a little less up here. Or, more than likely, the wind has actually shifted in this area from west or southwest to the east, because it will eventually shift to the east for our landing. Let's see if what we've got here. We're looking for LFPO. Now this is where I have to be very careful. I'm reading this, and I don't want. I have to keep on looking down at my instruments so that we don't go too far off course here. And yes, it just moved. There's De Gaulle, and that's because not there yet. It's just that much further away than De Gaulle. That list moved because it is a real-time list. So as airports become closer or further away from you, that list changes. Without having the modern day avionics that I'm used to, tough to tell how far we actually have to go, which is why the timing would have been nice if I had remembered to time this flight. If it was going to be an hour from takeoff and we'd flown 45 minutes, I know we'd have about 15 left. The modern avionics, when I'm using the other planes, let us know how far we are, the distance, how fast we're going to get there based on our airspeed, and etc. So, sorry, just getting that view back. Now we will, obviously coming into Paris, no, we are, because we'll go from this rural setting into a city setting. We'll see more buildings pop up. You can see little towns around right here. There are houses all throughout the countryside, and if you actually looked on big maps, they'd be there. So, in previous versions of Flight Sim, the cities were modeled nowhere near to this degree. But you would know that often the buildings were there, etc. When you're out in the country, not necessarily. They put things where they wanted. Forests showed up where they shouldn't have, etc. But here, if there's a river, you know it's there. If there's a building, you know it's actually there in real life. Same with forests. Flying about 145 degrees. We're back on the line. As you can see, try to head to 150 going into Paris. I have been looking at our temperatures too all the time. The oil pressure, temp, radiator temp, we're fine, etc. So when we do start to land, or just about as we're about to land, I'll hit the flaps. This switch will go down. When I was telling you about flying above 12,000 feet, you have to pressurize the fuel. This switch is to do that. And my oxygen tank is here. I have to turn that on and then turn the switch on. And this is my oxygen. Tell me whether it's full or not. The bottle that I have on board. And this will roughly tell me my altitude. So yes, this instrument, the altimeter, tells me my altitude. This is a quick visual to go, oh yeah, I'm at 25,000 feet and I've got 3/4 bottle left. If you run out of the oxygen, you've got to get below 12,000 feet. Now it's interesting. You may have problems doing that if you're flying in a mountainous area, like the Rocky Mountains or the Swiss Alps. So it's just something to keep in mind. All these little things for flying. So I'm getting way off to the left. So wind isn't pushing me as much as I thought. So you can see here, there's a highway labeled N November 31, Delta 901. There's an airport right here. So you can see that it is labeled. And not being familiar with the area, that airport should be out here somewhere. Here's our plane. Out here, but because I'm not familiar with the area, seeing it from this distance away, there is a scale here, 3. It's about 3, maybe 7, 8 miles. Tough to see, especially looking into the glare of the sun. But if I flew over there, it would be there. So I pulled back on the stick just a little in case you noticed. Went up to 4,000 feet. I'll let it drop here. Drop the nose. Descend. Down to our 3,500 again. The other thing that's modeled in the game are turbulence. So you're flying along, and if there's turbulence, you will feel it in the game. If there is icing, you will feel it in the game. So flying the Cessna in winter, if you're in an area in the northern climes, and this can happen even in summer, but there isn't the ability to de-ice the engine or the wings in the Cessna. So you have to be very careful, when you're flying, what your capabilities are. You can do some window de-icing here in the Spitfire, but I believe that's about it. That's all that's modeled on the Spitfire. So I don't think we're going to have any problems doing this flight around the world based on the time that I'm doing it. But if we do, not only can I force the time of day, I guess it wouldn't matter. Force the time of day, I can force the time of the year, but the weather would still be the weather. If it's -10, it's -10. So, drop down a little bit too much as I'm looking around at the countryside. Let's pull it up a bit. It's unfortunate that on this map they don't list what that airport is. Such is life, or as the French would say, c'est la vie.
Spitfire 227 contact. De Gaulle approach on 118.15.
Going to 118.15, Spitfire 227. All approach Spitfire 227 3,300 feet.
Spitfire 227 de Gaulle approach. Continue as planned. Reunitor.
Sometimes the view just goes a little wonky when you come back to the center, so I have to do that little quick jerking motion to get our view back so we can see the instruments. You can see here it's starting to get more populated. Just move up here, and there's Paris. This would be de Gaulle right here. And Orly is there. Downtown Paris is here. So you can see we're going to be getting into populated area. More Reuben. I'm getting tongue-tied. More urban than rural shortly. Any planes that we do see, and I haven't seen any yet, but any that we do see are actual representations of real flights going on at the moment. They are about 5 minutes behind, or so, maybe 10, because by the time they get the information from the real world, put it into the game, etc. But if we see a Air France flight that originated in Madrid, you know that that flight is either happening right now, or if you're at the airport, has just happened, or is just taking off, has just taken off. Pretty cool. This is the first time they've had that feature in Flight Sim. They've had features where you can use real-world schedules. There's an add-on company that they're not ready to put out the add-on yet for this version of Flight Sim, where they take the real-world airline schedules for I don't know how many airlines around the world, incredible number, and you see flights flying around, so you know that they are actually flying. Those are the real scheduled flights. May not be what's happened to the plane. The plane actually may not be up in the air, but it's there. So, but this is the first time they've actually modeled real world flights. So when you see one, I could go to a website called Flight Aware or Flight Radar 24, look up that call sign and actually see where the flights are. Pretty cool. Again, descending, don't want to. And you can see here is the sand. I think it's the sand in this little lake here. And that's what we've got right here. There's that little lake. It's not the sand. This is the sand. There's that little lake that's showing up right there. This is the same here. Let's have a look and see where we are on this list now. You can see now that Charles de Gaulle is showing up as number 5 on page 2. we're still a little bit too far for Orly to show up, which is fine. You can see it is getting more urban, as the map indicated that it would. And off to our right here, that is the same. And that is the same. Very much meanders. You probably know that anyway, but you can see here, just meanders through Paris. Should check our fuel here. I should have been doing that all along, but I know we have enough for the flight. Unfortunately, the only thing that's modeled here is the lower tank. See, when I push it, get a full fuel. But what I can do is just look here. This is the number of gallons that I have. And it's 100% on the top tank, 25 on the bottom. So I'm okay. When we start to do some of our longer flights in this Spitfire, I will be looking at that closely, doing the calculations to make sure the amount of fuel that I'm using.
Spitfire 227 contact, sane approach on 120.325.
Looks like a racetrack down here.
120.325, Spitfire 227.
Make sure the amount of fuel I'm using.
Sane approach Spitfire 227, 3,400 feet.
Spitfire 227, sane approach, continue as planned. Altimeter tree, 0.39er.
Make sure that the amount of fuel I'm using is not overly aggressive, so that we've got enough fuel to make it to our destination. I wish this map would actually zoom in a little bit more than it does. I think this might be where the Eiffel Tower is in here, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that one. But that's where the points of interest will show up. There's a little bit here. I can't go any further because the canopy, we've got it closed. Certainly are getting close. Trocadero, yes, that's where. And you can see all these points of interest showing up now. Trocadero are the gardens right across from, sorry, just looking at my instruments, right across from the Eiffel Tower. So only 4.3 miles left to go before we get to the Eiffel Tower. Should show up to our left, so maybe I will. Let's just descend here a little bit, get a better look at it. I have not seen it in the game yet. This was my first trip to Paris in the game since it came out, the new version, last August. So this is all new to me.
Contact, de Gaulle approach on 121.155.
121.155 for Spitfire 227.
Yes, absolutely. There's the Eiffel
De
Tower
Gaulle
right
approach,
there.
Spitfire 227, 3,000 feet.
Trocadero Gardens.
Spitfire 227, de Gaulle approach, continue as planned.
Eiffel Tower.
Altimeter tree, 0.42.
L'école militaire. Military
Spitfire
school.
227 contact
Cool.
Orly approach on 124.45.
124.45, Spitfire 227. Orly approach, Spitfire 227, 2,000 feet.
Spitfire Spitfire 227 Orly
Eiffel
approach.
Tower.
Continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.42.
Be interesting to see if they had the Eiffel Tower lit up at night, the way it should be. The Grand Palais.
Spitfire 227 contact Hsn approach on 120.325.
120.325 for Spitfire
That's what I thought.
227.
There's the Louvre. Right there.
Hsn approach Spitfire 227 1,700 feet.
That's the Louvre. Right there. Let's get out
Spitfire
of the
227
plane.
Hsn approach. Continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.42.
There's the pyramid right there. It's a nice thing about flights that actually get out sometimes and have a look at these things where you wouldn't normally. So that is, there's the Arc de Triomphe. That's what I was trying to find. You can see the closer we are to the ground, it gets a little shaky here. Here's the Arc de Triomphe. That's what I was hoping to find. Look at that beautiful model. Surprised it's not a point of interest in this game. You can actually see cars and trucks going around on the roads. Isn't that beautiful?
Spitfire 227 contact De Gaulle approach on 121.155.
Trocadero Gardens again.
Going to 121.155 Spitfire
Eiffel
227.
Tower.
De Gaulle approach Spitfire 227 1,500 feet.
Let's get back
Spitfire
on 150.
227 De Gaulle approach. Continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.42.
Let's just go up again.
Easy 4246 contact Paris Center on 125.7. Spitfire 227 contact Orly approach on 124.45.
124.45 for Spitfire 227.
I believe this is the airport.
Orly approach Spitfire 227 1,700 feet.
Spitfire 227 Orly approach. Continue as planned. Altimeter tree 0.42.
That's probably the airport. I'm trying to climb a bit here. Don't think the residents really like me being that low. So I'm looking for LFPO. Still don't see it. That is Orly. Maybe it's not Orly, I thought it was. I might have missed it. The LFPO. Where am I heading here? It has to be Orly. Interesting. Not sure why we're getting that that beacon. Okay, I don't know why I can't see it. That's silly. That is Orly. It's interesting.
France Soleil tree 459er, please expedite your climb to 10,000 feet.
There we are, number one. Right in my eyes all the time, and we're going to request a full landing.
Orly Tower Spitfire 227 is 4 miles to land.
Spitfire 227 Orly Tower. Enter left base runway 07. Altimeter tree 0.42 and 101
Enter left base runway 07 Spitfire 227.
Okay, so which runway is 07? The second one. Okay, so it's this one here. So what I'm going to do, and I normally would have the chart up even just to have a look at it, but well, let's do that. Let's can we get the charts up from here? Flights, that's not what I wanted. I have to chart approach 07 and lock this in just so I have a frame of reference. I want us at 3,000 feet, but we're okay with that not being 3,000. I'm actually flying far too far. I'm flying far too far to the south, see where the airport is here. So I'm going to pull back on the speed. I'm going to increase the RPM to 2650 and pull back on the speed. And no instrument landings, all in this, all visual.
Spitfire 227 cleared to land runway 07. Wind calm.
There's
Cleared to land runway 07 Spitfire 227.
You can see I'm actually lined up on 06, and that's fine because I want to see 07 out my right side just to have a better look at it. Now I'm hoping we have some lights here. Happy lights. Happy lights actually help you identify whether you're too low or too high on the glide slope. I'm sure we will, but not every airport has them, even these major airports. They're going to start to go over here a little bit. So I should have been a little closer, possibly. Maintain altitude, get the speed below 160. I don't think there are PAPI lights there. Ah, there are on this runway. I saw them right here. Right there, the red and white. The ideal glide slope is 2 white, 2 red, so if we get that, it's great. Pull back on the throttle. We're a little low. Try to get below 160 before I put the gear down. 2 red, 2 white, perfect. Don't think we're going to gear down. And there's a sign for gear down. Flaps down. We'll push our nose up. And at that time, we will have to increase our speed just a little. Very tricky landing this plane. And you can see clearly now the tip of the wing, the propeller, are yellow. You can see that as they spin around here. Just again, gentle and on the rudder. And pull back on the stick with the rudder. Put more pressure on the tail. Try to brake a bit more. I am going to go to the outside view.
Spitfire 227, turn next taxiway.
I don't know where the next taxiway is. That sign to our left is saying this is where. Thumbs up. This is where we're going to be parking. I'm actually pretty pleased with how we put that down. And one thing I didn't do, should have, was put the canopy back for the landing.
Spitfire 227, turn next taxiway.
I didn't. Of course, this is the only plane that I fly that I do have to put the canopy back. So I will often forget to do that. Doesn't affect how you land.
Spitfire 227, exit runway when able.
Safety. I'm trying.
Spitfire 227, contact ground on 121.705.
121.705 for Spitfire 227.
And we're going to go to parking. Hopefully it keeps us on the
Orly
same
ground,
parking.
Spitfire 227 taxi to parking.
Spitfire 227 taxi to general aviation parking using taxiway cross runway 02 Alpha Bravo.
Taxi to fuel Spitfire 227.
Bringing us in a little closer, which is great. If we go over here, go to airport, actually see where we are on the runway. Now, let's have a look to see 02 Alpha Bravo. And you can see here 02, which we're on runway 02. They don't have Alpha Bravo here. So why Microsoft and Sobo, who actually put this together, didn't mirror real world taxiways, the convention of the lettering is beyond me, especially for these major airports. I can see small airports. I think that was a faux pas. Now, if I was on VATSIM, virtual air traffic, I would actually get in here. Let's go back here. I would actually get, you want to take W23, so Wilker 23 to Lima Gulf, or Lima Gulf November, etc. So, and that's why I use this ribbon. There's a plane right there. We will get their marker eventually and see where they're from. I'm sure nobody's coming. They could be. Could be a plane. Could be some ground traffic. And by that I mean fuel trucks, just trucks driving around, making sure everything's fine, general operations of the airport. And the airports are, for the most part, model real life. So this is what your Orly looks like. I did take great care in modeling a number of the airports. To make them virtually identical to what you see in real life. And then, as you imagine, the third-party community has given us a number of airports that you can, some of it's free, some of it you can purchase. The plane I'm flying is from FlyingIron Simulations, and I purchased the Spitfire. The livery for the Spitfire, I didn't purchase. It was off of a website where it's a free download. So absolutely incredible. There are extended tanks on this Spitfire as it comes from FlyingIron. It has a smaller few tanks. So somebody did create larger fuel tanks, and I have downloaded those, installed them. It's a very easy process. For much of our flight around the world here, our 80 flights, we won't need extended fuel tanks, but there are at least one flight where we absolutely will. And by the way, I'm going in an easterly direction so that we can pick up the westerly tailwinds. So this is where we are come to. And this is the fueling spot. Interesting they brought us here, but that's fine. Cut the throttle. And there we go. Well, throttle was cut. Oh, that came up because it's actually refuel. And shouldn't be refueling. The game just does it automatically. Parking brake set. Prop and mixture off. Magnetos off. Off. Radio off. And there you go. And we can actually go in here and turn the battery off. If we can, there we go. Continue. Take the power off, so that goes. So let's open the door. And we can now get out of our Spitfire. And there we are. So there's a plane, I'm not aware of what TVF, what that call sign is, but it's coming in from Delta Tango Tango Alpha, which would be down in Africa. So the plane's sitting over here, and we're sitting right here. I will try to remember for the next flight that that's actually where we are, and start our flight from here. Beautiful day in Paris, as you can see. I think it was great. We got to swing around the Eiffel Tower, the Louvre, the Arc de Triomphe, Trocadero. Wouldn't get to do that in real life. So I think that turned out to be fantastic. Who knows what other points of interest we'll see as we head around the world. So thank you again for joining me on Flight 1, and hopefully you'll join me for the rest of the flights. Until then, this is Flight Dreams signing off, saying have a good day.